Hello, all. Welcome to the after show. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a difficult time for everybody. We actually had the show on time. We had everything good to go. I had wanted to. I'm not religious, as everybody knows, but I pulled out my Bible and I was looking a little bit at Revelation, which I've been thinking about a bit. And there's a passage shortly after the plague hits, and there was, okay, hold on a second. And lo, there was a dark horse, and on that horse was a rider named Death, who came because in time was on time. So, even though we were on time, we decided to wait another couple seconds and start this just a little late. We don't want to bring about the apocalypse. I know some of you think it is already here, but no, yeah, we were. I'm not kidding. We were on time. Nobody believes me. We were on time. We were. But it was the end of the world. It was just a. So, what we have is this is just our hangout show. If anybody wants to come on in and talk about their experiences with sort of stir crazy being in lockdown. You got kids, you got a wife that won't leave you alone, and the state of Massachusetts is telling you got to educate them, and they're like, Daddy, I don't want to learn. Hypothetically. Yeah, that's hypothetical. It's what it's been tough for everybody, and I just want to sort of talk. And we missed this last week, and it's one of those things again. We're all sort of everybody's schedule's been upended. I've been sick. I honestly will say I wasn't really planning on talking too much about my story. I've had some requests to talk about it because we actually did have a sort of last time we were here, we had someone who actually had tested positive. I hope he's okay. He tested positive and he was a little scared about it. I have had it. It was not fun. Uh, it's been difficult. I feel I'm reasonably close to back to normal. Still not quite there, but if you guys have been watching the show, I mean, I honestly, this is the first. No, so I hosted my show, just me, live earlier today with Ocean, which was a lot of fun. But it's up until today, I really didn't feel like I could even do. We've been doing some pre-recorded. In the last one, there were some really rough cuts. Our producer, Boole, was just like, Nick, what the fuck? And I think it's because he's on the credits and people are going to think he produced that instead of me. So I was like, okay, I'd be willing to take his name off the credits and not let him take the blame for that one because there were some very bad cuts, but I just got exhausted halfway through. I was like, I think, good enough. It's only our brand. Um, so we're getting on it, and there's still news. I got to tell you, we've done shows before. This is kind of an inside joke for those of you who have been around for those of you who've been around for any length of time. We'll do breaking news. We'll do a show, and what gets crazy is when there's breaking news during a show or breaking news during breaking news, which we've had, and I mean we've had legit breaking news. I keep looking. I've got a screen up here that will flash if something big happens, and I'm expecting to see like during the show Kim Jong-un has died. Um, oh, wouldn't surprise me. It should be in the description. We should have the hangout. You can call in. You can, a phone. For those of you, now a phone is an ancient communications device, which was phenomenally limited. At first they had to be wired and plugged into the wall, if you can believe it. And then you had to actually put in somebody's number. You couldn't just like say their name or just dial by name. You actually had to plug in the number, which you had to remember, which was a real pain in the ass. And then it would hook you up to that person, but you could only talk to that person. You couldn't talk to anybody. Hugely limited. But if you are stuck with that ancient form of communication, which is just a level above smoke signal, we've got a number. It should be in the description. It should be accurate. I'm the one who put it in the description. So if it's not accurate, blame Boole. If it is accurate, I'm the one who put it in the description. So, yes, they did electrocute people on occasion. There were some downsides, but you got to talk to your friends. So we also it's a meet. So anybody who wants to come along and join, and we can have sort of a general hangout. I don't know. I mean, my own experience with this, like I said, I don't know, because it's my platform. I get a little iffy about just, hey, let me talk about me. I get plenty of opportunities to talk about me, but people have asked and they wanted to know. I think it was about a month ago. Very much of the last month is bits and pieces. Some of it I remember really very well because there were times when I was on the mend and doing better. One of the things, there were two things I didn't realize, and I think it was Native Atheist who I think had said last time he had tested positive. So, I mean, a number of things. So, what had happened with me was it started out very much like not flu. It was like a tough cold, but there were a couple of interesting things about it that flagged for COVID. One was a cough, but it was a very mild cough. I was only coughing about once an hour, maybe twice an hour. It wasn't, but it was noticeable. Normally I don't cough. I'm just coughing. It wasn't like overly productive, but it was, just a bit. And that, believe it or not, that's one of the big signs. And there is some significant variation for people who've got it. But some aches and pains. We sort of sat down and ticked off what are the things that really differentiate this from the flu or a cold. And there's a few big things. It's not 100%, but we ticked off enough of it, and we finally decided to call our doctor when my wife got sick, and I was okay. And we talked to my wife, my doctor, and he said, well, no, just judging by the symptoms and how long it took for my wife to get sick from where I got it, and then how I probably got it, which was from a gas station. We sort of sorted the whole thing out. And he said, well, judging by how long it took to go from me to her, and then eventually the kids, because they started to get sick, and sort of judging by the pattern, the transmission rate, the symptoms, how it was expressing in the kids who did in fact lose a sense of smell and taste, and that's an extraordinarily rare thing to happen. There are some diseases that'll do that, but I said, okay, judging by this entire pattern, he goes, it's classic. You've got it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And I was like, well, wait a minute, but this hasn't like totally wiped me out. I said, well, only 50% of people who get it actually get symptoms bad enough they even realize they have it. And I was shocked. You'd think I'm basically in the news biz. I'm definitely in the education biz. And I had no idea. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, especially with kids. And my kids had almost no. They had one day of, Daddy, I think I might not be feeling better. But the doctor said that. So I started preparing a show on, and I've had a few people who've said, hey, lighten up your shows, make them a little nicer, make them, because it's all down, down, down and depressing. I was like, we're a news show. It's going to sometimes be down, down, down and depressing. I'm sorry. But so we were about to do a show on it, and then all of a sudden I headed south very, very quickly. Now, there was a number of discussions I started having with my doctor about this, and I eventually reached the point where I really couldn't communicate with my doctor, and my wife had to do most of the communications. I was sleeping 18, 20 hours a day easily. Now, I have a couple of reasonably significant medical conditions, and they were all cause for concern in this particular case. The one that was the greatest cause for concern was I have some pulmonary issues. Last 3 years, I've gotten pneumonia. A year ago, I lost 44% of the capacity in my left lung, and it started to spread to the right. That was a problem. It is completely resistant to antibiotics, so I usually have to go 2 or 3 courses of antibiotics to get it under control. This is a serious problem. So one of the last conversations I had with my doctor, and I was not doing well by this point. I was not doing well. I actually got delirious at one point, which was actually not all that bad, quite frankly. I was like, I don't know, people take drugs to do this. I just get COVID. You're cool. You can do it for free. At least if your fever spikes high enough. So I had, but I was talking to my doctor, and he's like, okay, we're going to have a discussion. I was like, okay, what's the discussion? He said, you have COVID. And I am telling you that's what you've got. That is my diagnosis. That's in your chart. I am registering you with the state. We can test you. Testing you really is meaningless at this point, and here's why. The tests actually have a failure rate of about 30%, 30% false negative. So I said, at this point, if you got a negative with a COVID test, I would not believe it. I could give you 3 tests, and if you got negative on all of them, they're lying. You've got it. If you get a positive, I already know you got it, and I'm telling everybody you got it. Where this is in your chart now, you've had it. The problem is we need these tests for the medical um, facilities, doctors, patients, well, doctors in particular. If a doctor starts to show symptoms of it, they test. If a doctor's been exposed, they test. If it's negative, you don't know they don't have it, but you keep them working because that's triage. That's the situation we're in. If they test positive, you know they've got it. So you're not. I was because I was a high risk patient. He said you can get one. We will get it for you if you need it. He asked me not to do it, and I wanted to do it. I wanted the peace of mind of at least knowing and having the piece of paper. Should no, don't, no, no, nope. The medical facilities need it. My doctor's word is good enough. And when I was in the ER, triage, they're like, yeah, you got it. It's not nobody's. So that's it. I went out and just sort of tried to rest as much as I could. Another major symptom of it is you get better, you get worse, you get better, you get worse. This doesn't happen to everybody. Happened to me. This is now my fourth run getting better. Started to get back again. The fever started to come back again just a couple of days ago. About 2 or 3 days ago, I was starting to head south, but didn't get as far south as I've been, and now I'm broadcasting. So that's been sort of the where it's been with me. I want to talk about something that is going to be a little, well, it is what it is. It started to get very bad. I did start to have profound breathing difficulties, and there was talk of precisely at what point I would have to be hospitalized. And we were basically at the point where it was, I had to be escorted. I really couldn't walk anymore to a triage center. My pulse ox was hovering around 90, 91. They didn't want to admit me until it was below 90. They can't do much. I'm so, and I had some friends saying, go to the hospital, go to the hospital. There's nothing you can do but get a secondary infection or infect others before. There is no treatment for COVID. There is no treatment for it. There's nothing they can do. What they can do is try to keep you alive long enough that your body can fight it off. If you're and plenty of people get it and don't get that sick. Plenty of people get it and don't get that sick. Most people get it and don't get that sick. But at that point, they put you on a ventilator. The ventilator breathes for you, and they just try to keep you alive until your body can beat it. There's no point on going on a ventilator until you are at about 88 pulse ox. A good ventilator will get you up to 88. It can actually get you a bit higher, but 88 is the number they shoot for. If you're not below 88, there's nothing even a ventilator can do. I was at about 90, so it was tough. It was tough on my family. My wife works in pharmaceuticals. Funnily enough, she's an essential worker in the state of Massachusetts. Her company is one of their targets. One of the things they're working on could be useful in stopping the spread of this. So, as it turns out, all of a sudden, she's working twice the hours she had been. The state of Massachusetts is now saying parents have to educate their own kids, which is cool. I understand. We need to have an educated, but she's getting hit by teachers who are saying, "Why aren't you spending 4 or 5 hours a day with the kid?" I'm in extraordinary distress. And by the way, we're not the only members of our immediate family who are profoundly ill right now. So it was very difficult. And I think this ties into a couple of things. Uh, I did have some friends who were the support from my friends, my family, the people on the Discord, and when I could, I was coming in and seeing all of the messages, and it was so heartening to see people who were supporting me, supporting my family, and saying a lot of really wonderful things. I will tell you this. Chris Cuomo, who is the brother of Governor Cuomo, Chris Cuomo is on CNN, and he got it, and he talked a lot about it, and he said something that I thought was very interesting, which was he was talking about, and I will say this too, I do think a second sign of the apocalypse is I want to mention Tony Designs twice in one day, and I had meant to ask him. He had posted on the Discord at one point a little time ago, and I'm hoping, I assume he's listening to this, I'm hoping he can maybe repost this. I'd wanted to get to it before the show. I wasn't able to, but he had posted something on how being ill actually chemically can cause depression because of the way the neurotransmitters are actually being expended, and that if you get certain kinds of illnesses, it will actually add to depression. And one of the things that Chris Cuomo had talked about was wanting to stay alive. And the first time he realized that this could beat him, I remember the time I realized that. And that's a bit of a tough realization to come to. Honestly, he described it a bit differently than I would. And one of the things that happened to me was my world started getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And this happens physically, this happens emotionally. When you first start getting sick, I want to keep doing my shows. I want to educate people. I want to tell people what's going on in the world. I want to try to quell maniacs who are setting cell phone towers on fire because they think that they're causing COVID. I mean, this is the way you fight this is with education. I don't educate a huge amount of people. I educate enough. I educate enough. I think everybody on here thinks this is a good product and a worthwhile show, and we have there's nobody here who isn't dedicated to, whether through humor or education, and those two aren't mutually exclusive, aren't dedicated to trying to have something that actually makes the people who watch it feel better as people than when before they saw it. And I will say we accomplish that most of the time. On occasion, I'll admit I've seen a few of our episodes. We don't always succeed, but we do pretty well. I want to get back to that, but you start getting sick, you start having a hard time breathing, and I think Mr. Designs did in fact put that in the live chat. You start having these difficulties, and the world's getting smaller, and you start not really worrying about what's happening in Africa. Start not worrying about what's happening in Italy. Start worrying about what's happening just with your immediate family. Everybody trying to, and you do try to you try not to be a burden, which is the last thing you should do, but you're aware. And so you try to do more than you should, especially when you start to feel better. You try to do more than you should, get even sicker. Again, COVID-19 just does that anyway, but I've been known to be a little stubborn on occasion. I think most people who have met me will tell you that I'm a little bit of I would say, I mean, most stubborn person they've ever met might not be where I land on that, but I'm in contention. Sorry. So, excuse me. There's the cough. That's actually the cough. Um, so it's difficult because you're aware that you're taking other people down with you. You are. I mean, especially when you got a family so overwhelmed and a system so overwhelmed, and we're well off. We're lucky. My wife is still earning a paycheck. Um, I'm kind of almost earning a paycheck. So we're okay. But so the world starts getting smaller, and then you start not worrying about New York, for example, and the fact that I've got family in New York. When people try to want to know why I get so triggered when people say that this is fake, or because I've got family who's fighting it on the front lines. So I've seen it. I've talked to people about it, and I'm not exclusive in this. Half the people in the live chat have, but this is one of the reasons I get triggered about it. And so, but then I can't really worry or think about them anymore. It's just sort of thinking about my kids and my wife, and I can't think about my parents anymore. I can't think about it. It's just because the world's getting smaller, and I haven't been out of the bedroom in a day and a half, and the shutters are drawn so that I can sleep. But it's just sort of the world's getting darker, and the world's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then eventually, it's like I can't even really think about my kids anymore. And you'd think that would be a little depressing, but it's not, because you're just really trying to breathe. And it hurts, because it hurts to breathe in, it hurts to breathe out. The only thing that doesn't hurt is not breathing, but that is an option that ostensibly you're trying to avoid. Um, but then the world gets smaller and smaller and smaller. You're not even thinking about them anymore. You're sitting there thinking about, and you've got some time to think. I mean, you're asleep a lot of the time, but sometimes you're awake. You're too sick and too exhausted and lethargic to get out of bed, but you're not sleeping. And so you're thinking about, what have you done in your life? What have you failed to accomplish? What were all the things that you wanted to get done and you're not there yet? You start wondering, were those all that important? And not just, I think about the fights I got into with people. I was like, should I have really done that? Was that? And, you start to, obviously you're going to have regrets, but it's suddenly, I've said this before, the man who gave me that bookcase is over 200 years old. It was made in the colonies, and the glass in it's the original glass. So I always feel a little weird having that in here because, like, if girls hit it or break it, it's 200-year-old glass. It's they can't reproduce that. The man who gave that to me was also the man who married me. He was a Baptist minister in New York, and he died in our home. And he had been very sick. He traveled to see us for Thanksgiving. Died in our home, maybe a little. Our home was the last place. He went straight from our home to the hospital, and he did not come out. But he had come to our place. He had traveled from New York to Michigan to have Thanksgiving with us. And he was sick. Everybody knew it, but everybody thought he had more time. I remember saying goodbye to him, and everybody was around him. And I went up to him and I kissed him on the forehead and told him I didn't want to worry. I didn't want him to worry. And I wasn't saying that in a sense like, well, you're going to make it. Everybody knew by this point. I didn't want him to worry about his friends or family or anyone else. Um, and I told him he was loved, and he looked at me and he smiled. I said, I don't worry about anything anymore. And he said that with a smile, and I had a hard time understanding that. But as I was sitting there starting to have a hard time breathing, one of the things I realized was I wasn't worried about too much of anything anymore. It was I don't know if I want to say resignation so much, but I was just like, you know what? I'm going to die someday. I didn't see it coming this soon, but I've done enough stuff I can say I'm okay with it. Yeah, there was plenty I wanted to do, but you know, my family will recover. This happens to a lot, and it was just sort of this very. I was okay with it, and there are people who are close friends and family who spoke to me at this point, and that was not easy for them that I was in that state, but that's where I was. The world had gotten so small that there was no, wasn't, I was okay. I guess, at peace is the closest thing. So it was funny because I remembered when he said I don't have any problems anymore, and I was sort of in that state. So um, it was not easy, but we did slowly but surely start getting the world expanding again, and people were starting to come back into it. And I was getting to spend a little more time with my kids and remembering why I enjoy spending time with them so much. Got to spend more time with my wife. Got to spend more time with talking to some people I hadn't spoken to in a very long time, and I started doing some work. And people are like, stop working, stop working. Well, I agree. You should not overexert yourself. It's very easy to do, and I do have a tendency to do that, I will admit. But that was another thing that Cuomo had said, which I thought was really important, which was at that point for him, finding things that he enjoyed doing was phenomenally important, and doing those things. And he had had a lot of doctors say, stay in bed. But he found one who said, all right, does it hurt when you breathe? He said, yeah. I said, okay, good. Take in a big, deep breath. Sit up, take in that breath. He goes, no, I'm not going to do that. He goes, good. Do it anyway. And I started doing that. I started doing just very light exercises, remembering how to breathe, remembering to breathe, reminding my lungs that this is what you should be doing. Um, and my parents were big fans of that. They weren't particular fans of going to the hospital unless you absolutely had to, but they were fans of not necessarily walk it off, but there is such a thing as staying in bed too much, and most of us do it. So I came in and I fiddled around with the interface, which to tell you the truth, our producer just loves when I do that. Um, and by the way, this is a call-in show. I can keep talking forever. My guess is most of our audience would rather I not do that. So we do have we are monetized again, so which is nice. So if anybody wants to do any super chats, you can do that. Until then, I'm just gonna keep talking. So if somebody wants to just interrupt this with a super chat, that's probably the easiest way because I haven't even been checking the live chat. We do have, and I just realized. So one thing I would like. No, actually, we don't need to. We have a card I made a card for the call-in shows with the number on the thing, but we haven't put that in. But we do have. We've got the number and the hangout in the description. So, but one of the things I started doing was I started trying to, and I wanted to get back on air as soon as possible. I even did. There's one or two episodes you can see if you go not that far back where I look like death warmed over. I probably shouldn't have done it then, I will confess. But one of the reasons I felt compelled to do it was because I was reminding myself of one of the reasons I wanted to stay alive. One of the things I enjoyed doing for me. I can half admit, and it is true, I enjoy doing this show for other people, but I do it for me. I'm lucky enough to have the freedom to do a lot of things that I want to. I've written a couple of books, done the. I wanted to remind myself of things that were important, and there were a few people. I was reading the messages in the Discord. Tony, I saw what you said. Most people wanted me to make it through it. Actually, Tony really did. Tony was very nice. He made sure he wanted me to make it through it so that he could keep making my life a living hell. I was reading these messages, and friends and family were making sure that they got to me, and I try not to get a little over. It had an impact, and I think that kind of thing is important. So if you do know people who get sick, letting them know why they're important to you is good, and helping them to. But it was the support was overwhelming. But that was my experience with it. It was not a pleasant experience. Um, I think when people think about whether it was a pleasant experience or not, they think about the symptoms and, oh my God, what's the symptoms in terms of the worst symptom I had, I think, was a headache that was immune to just about anything. Part of that was probably caffeine withdrawal. I have a tendency to drink a little caffeine. Um, but nothing, caffeine pills even wouldn't. There was no making a dent in the headache. The fever wasn't too bad most of the time. I did get delirious at one or two points. I mean, I got delirious. I thought I'd had conversations I hadn't had. It got a little sideways. I mean, I'd start finishing these conversations with people later. Like, we didn't have this talk. What are you talking about? Um, so it was and I don't know how the $500 bill to that there was like a call-in number, 900 number about firemen and poles, and I don't want to think about it. I don't know how it happened. So I told my wife, that's what I told her. I was delirious. Yes, that's the story. We're sticking to it. I was alone in a room for, I mean, give me a break. I thought I was asking for directions. I don't know. You know what? Tony's been there. He'll explain it to you. So, anyways, that was, I did have a number of threats to get better, or somebody was going to kill me, which I had a few of those, which honestly, to tell you the truth, was a help too. It's odd that threatening to murder someone who's on the verge of, but it was nice. The hardest symptoms were the headache and the pain breathing. Just because that doesn't go away, and that's not a headache. Actually, believe it or not, if it's consistent, you can sort of eventually just work through it because your body's kind of adapted to it. The pain breathing, it's one pain breathing in, it's another pain breathing out, and it's just like, I'd really like that to stop, please. Not the breathing part, just the pain part. But since they're connected, you got a problem. Um, so it was, and now it's like some of that I remember quite well because there were days where I was getting better and things were going, and then I headed south again. There were Mikey had taken a week off of work, and that was sort of right in the middle of this. And that's another thing, which is, I mean, again, there was better, worse, and it was just. This was sort of one of the ones that I was starting to get better. And Mikey was telling me that he had the week off. Got worse again 2 weeks later. I kind of get up. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm going to contact Mikey and talk to him because he's got the week off. It's just like, yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. Ooh, it's like it all blurs. I think it was Ansgar or somebody that said blurs day, or all the days are blurring together. But this is weeks. You've been in bed forever. Um, so that's what it is. I had a whole battery of tests. My lungs were okay. I had a clinical diagnosis of pneumonia, but not to the point where they had to put me in, and the lungs were clear on the X-ray. That doesn't. Turns out another thing. I learned a whole bunch about the medical. It turns out I thought if they were clear, they were um, uh, if they were clear, they could. Oh God. Okay, I'm getting trolled. I am getting trolled. You know what? I'm talking about life and death issues, and people are trolling me, and I really hate it when. What pool? It's not Tony. Who is it? Oh, dear Lord. Okay. 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 Um, yeah, I did call somebody about a raccoon that had turned into a yellow cat, but honestly, that was my daughter had seen that and she was freaking out because my daughter right during this, I'm pretty sick, but it's 8 a.m., 9 a.m. in the morning. Our dog is out, and my daughter comes and says, "Dad, there's a raccoon out front." This is Massachusetts. We have rabies, and if you see a raccoon in the daytime, it's profoundly sick, and usually it's rabies. Our dog is out there. If the raccoon bites the dog, and I'm sitting there going, "Okay, I've got COVID. Dog getting rabies at this point is really probably just a bit too much." Uh, there may be a God, and I think he's heard what I've said about him, and he's pissed. That's about the only conclusion I can reach at that point. Um, I don't care how sick I am. He cannot get rabies. So I freak out. I jump. The girls are like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "You, are you sure it was a raccoon?" They're like, "Yes, it was a raccoon. It was a raccoon. It was." So I run out, throw open the blinds. I'm looking for this raccoon. Where's the raccoon? I'm calling the dog. I'm trying to get the, and I'm freaking out. I shouldn't be doing any of this, but we can't get rate. We can't let the no. If the this is a whole other order of magnitude of please, God, no. So I'm going through. I was just like, oh my god, oh my god. I said, okay, describe the raccoon. And she goes, well, it was orange. Mm, mm, Okay, okay. I would like to go a couple steps back in the conversation. The raccoon was orange. Yes, actually, it might have been a cat. I there. It's a good thing your children are cute. It keeps you from like keeps you from there. There are times. Yeah. So we were assaulted by an orange raccoon. All right. So yeah, I have to since I do have to read these super chats. That's kind of like legally binding. Red, $2 for 1.99. I'm not giving her that extra cent for this. Got a call about a raccoon turned into a yellow cat. I'm pretty sure that was the conversation. Admittedly, that could have been about the. I don't. There's so much from that time that's just kind of in and out. Kwesa for 10,000 won. More than 2,700 dead in the last 24 hours, and people are protesting against safety measures. What's wrong with the USA, Nick? Um, us foreigners cannot understand. It ain't that hard to understand. It's not. You want to understand it? It is this simple. We are like any other country. We are. I think the Business Insider did the article on the fact that we're actually 11 countries, which I like that. I think that's if you want to break us up culturally, they made a very good argument for we're 11 countries. A number of these sort of sub countries value different things. The ones that tend to value fierce, rugged individualism usually are suspicious of big government and all these other things. The liberals scored a massive coup by putting in the country's first black president, and uh, I don't want to say it was just the liberals. I don't want to. I'm speaking sort of in very rough terms here. I don't. I didn't think it would happen in my lifetime. I worked on the campaign. I was the second district coordinator for the Obama campaign in Connecticut during the primaries. I still don't think I didn't realize how much I didn't think that moment would come. And I joined the Obama campaign when he was polling at 0.5% within the Democratic Party. You don't do that unless you believe in the candidate. I knew who he was. I believed in him. I joined, and oh my God, in time is nothing. In time takes 80 hours a week sometimes, and was nothing compared to how much I spent on that campaign in terms of just hours working. But I didn't realize until after he'd gotten elected. I didn't think I'd live even on the campaign. I always sort of knew that he was the guy, but I didn't think it would happen, if that makes any sense. He gets elected, boom. This shocks everybody. Even the people who really wanted to see it. I mean, there's a reason why people were crying and just like, oh my God, nobody thought would see it in our lifetimes. We just didn't think would see it. I'm thrilled. This is great. But I think the world changes very quickly, and you take a look at people who are conservative and boys are kissing, and it's okay that they're kissing. It's okay that they're getting married. We have a black president. We're talking about everybody's getting health care for free. And I mean, these are great things, but the world's changing, and the world's changing very rapidly. It's changing faster than any of us thought. And I think there were a lot of people who felt that it was being rammed down their throats. That was John Boehner when he said, "Hell no, you can't. Hell no, you can't," to Obama about all the things he was doing. What he was playing to, I don't think he cared. I think he thought actually it was a good idea. Mitt Romney had made the essential health care package they were trying to get through. But he was playing to the base that felt, no, you can't do this to us. That's what they felt. The liberals are doing this to us. We just want to live in the world where our 8-track Betamax VCR can keep blinking noon, and everybody points out, nobody says that it's doing that, and that we can't program it, and so on and so forth. So nobody believed Trump. It took me a little while to figure this out, but the people who said that, well, we think the Republicans who said, well, Trump represents the everyday man and all this other stuff, he literally uses a golden toilet. And the other thing that everybody's aware of is he had to pay for that. I mean, he had to order that. It's not just that it showed up in his house and he's thinking, no, he had that installed. This is a man who said, I want to use a golden toilet. No, he's not the everyday man. And as much as I sometimes get really a little snarky with conservatives and don't credit them with a whole heck of a lot of intelligence, they're smart enough to realize he's not the everyday man, never was, never will be. As much as they say, well, he earned his own, everybody knows that the reason he got where he did was because of a small loan of $1 million from his father, plus all his father's business contacts, and everybody knows he's bankrupted half the shit he's touched anyway. No, he had one requirement for the job. He pissed off liberals. He pissed off people who were educated. He pissed off people who said, listen, we know better than you, which, by the way, liberals say. I like to think more often than not, it tends to be true when it comes to some things, because we look at the numbers and we say, hey, this virus is killing people. Maybe we should quarantine. But nonetheless, we can be snarky about it. We can be condescending about it. And even when we're not, nobody likes being told we know better than you. He pissed off the ivory tower elites that had 8 years of almost uncontested having things their way. That's why he got elected. That was the only reason he got elected. His only qualification was nobody else pissed off the liberals more. Most people know coal jobs aren't coming back. They said that because they had to lie to themselves in such a way that they could vote for him. So now what you've got is a country that, and this is again the backfire effect, they don't want to be proven wrong. They don't want to be called out as having voted simply for someone because of how horrible he was and how much the other. That's the psychology. In my view, that's the psychology. So you've got a country that has to double down on him, because if they don't, they have to admit that they didn't put the country first. They didn't take a qualified person over that guy. So half the country is doubling down because they have to. They have to believe that it's all fake, and he's giving them the out, and that's all it is. If he gives them enough plausible deniability, they will vote for him because that's preferable to the alternative. And all of us do that. All of us do that. I do that. We all do that. We all make mistakes. We're talking about that with Ocean. Sometimes we've all been in a position where we argued something we knew we were wrong, but we really didn't like the person who was pointing it out to us, especially because of the way they were pointing it out. And so if we could get away with it, we'd say we were right, even though we knew we were wrong. We all do that. That's half this country right now. That's what's going on, and it happens in countries all around the world, Coessa. So there is a very long answer to your 10,001 question. That's what you get for asking a question when I'm on a show uncontested by anybody else. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go through the live chat, which has been going through, has been moving on without me. Who knew? Somehow I said I was going to turn this show into all about me, and so far it's all about me. We do have a call-in number. It should be at the top of the description. I don't have any complaints that it's not correct, so I just think nobody's coming in. I'd think there'd be like 20 people like, oh God, we got to shut this guy up. Let's just, even if we come in to talk about Taco Tuesday. But so far I am on my, I will say this though, the other thing, yeah, Trump said that, what's it hurt to try that malaria medication? Everybody, that malaria medication is dangerous stuff. It's now killing people, which is what was said was going to happen. The malaria medication, which there's no evidence it works on COVID, and now there is significant evidence that it doesn't. That he said, what's the harm in trying? We have bought a huge stockpile of it during an economic depression or an economic downturn headed towards a depression. We can't afford to buy it. We are taking up resources towards towards things that could actually work, and it's killing people. So, and people who need it because they have malaria now are having a hard time getting it. That's what's wrong with it. And this isn't hindsight. He was told, and everybody said, and we said on this show, that's what's wrong with it. And I'm aware of the irony that I am a little bit right now sitting there saying that this is what liberals do, but you have to, that's what's wrong with it. And he doesn't care and he won't listen because his gut tells him otherwise. Okay, fine. For the most part, just about every bad decision I've ever made in my life, I made in a heightened emotional state. I was either angry, I was in love, I was whatever it was, heightened emotional state. The vast majority. Doesn't have to be anger. It can be positive, negative, doesn't matter. Worst decisions I ever made, usually in one of those states. Going with your gut qualifies as that kind of thing. No, think. And by the way, yeah, sometimes it is tough because I don't want to do it either all the time. At any rate, enough lecturing. Sorry, everybody's getting so... Welcome to the Get Lectured by Nick Soutter show. My apologies. All right. Am I taking steroids? I'm not, for a couple of reasons. First of all, actually, steroids can make it worse. Okay, fine. You ask the question, you get another story. So, this is about how charming my wife is. I was in Argentina, and I had an ear infection. The ear infection started to get a little out of control for an ear infection. And my girlfriend at the time, I do think we have somebody in, so, and I recognize the face. Welcome. I'm going to tell this story because I know she's going to make fun of me for it forever. Now, I can't hear her. This is Charis in here, and I do want to hear her. We don't, so hopefully Boole can get on that, and we can figure out how that's going to work. She is talking. I was going to start to make fun of her, but I realized at some point her mic's going to get fixed, and then I'm going to be in real trouble, so I'm going to avoid that. But she's going to like this story. So I'm in Argentina, and I have an ear infection. They're throwing a couple things out. It doesn't work. So finally they say, we're going to give him corticosteroids. So I get a shot of corticosteroids. A couple hours later, I start to hiccup. Okay, fine. No biggie. The hiccups get worse. And then finally it starts to get so it's actually really hurting. And the hiccups are harder and stronger than any hiccups I've ever had in my life. Anything I've ever had in my life. So after 5 or 6 hours, it's starting to really hurt. And this is getting torturous. Every time I hiccup, it feels like somebody's stabbing a knife into my chest. So we get to the hospital. They're not looking at me until about hour 10, and they said, okay, at this rate, his lungs are going to fail, and his diaphragm's going to fail in about 2 or 3 hours, so we have to stop the hiccups. But it was an allergic reaction to corticosteroids. I'm allergic to corticosteroids. I get the hiccups. So first of all, I'm one of the few people who get to say that they almost died of the hiccups. They actually they said, okay, we got to knock him out. He has to be rendered unconscious. That's the only thing that's going to stop the diaphragm from going. So they put me under to stop the diaphragm so that I didn't die of failure there. Now, I tell this story, and people are like, wow, it must have been terrible, yada, yada, yada. My wife, when we first met, heard the story and said, wow. And now goes around telling people, yep, if he had died, his tombstone would have said, and his last word was,
I dare
and then I married her anyway. You're not going to make fun of me dying of the hiccups? I kind of almost died of the hiccups. I didn't die of the hiccups, but it was close. That's why I don't take
I
steroids.
mostly joined so that the others would no longer feel shy about joining. And I know Red was choked up. She was too choked up to join earlier.
I understand. Well, yep, she's yeah, she was there for a lot of this, and I think that was it was difficult for everybody. But thank you so much for coming on. So it's been I haven't seen you in a little while. I know you haven't been around. So I'm glad. You see, just so other people can see, this is what a friend does. They come on. They don't make fun of like death by hiccup. I mean, that's not funny. I agree. That's just
I've
not
only been
funny.
on here for a moment, Nick.
Oh, were you planning on making fun of me?
Thoroughly. No, don't worry.
Well, which one was the mute key? Was that Control Alt? Hold on a sec. Hold on. I probably don't want to hit F7 on that one because I think then that would put Charis in control of the show, and things might take a dark turn if I hit the Alt F7. So I think I won't touch
I'm
the
not
keyboard
wearing
for
my
now.
heels. You're safe.
Okay, I'm most certainly not safe, but I'll, I'll,
Well, I do
uh,
recall our interactions while you were more seriously ill, and when you had told me your oxygen level, that was alarming.
yeah. I mean, that was not, and I think that was the other thing. You know, honestly, sometimes it wasn't too bad. I think the other reason it gets not so bad, truth be told, a little morbid, but truth be told, one of the reasons, yeah, autoerotic asphyxiation, drinking feels good because the lack of oxygen to your brain. That's actually what it is. Um, it feels good for whatever reason to starve your brain of oxygen. There were times I started to actually feel better. I was like feeling a little high. I was like, oh, this isn't too bad.
Well,
Like, oh,
I don't
now
know
I'm
if you're
hallucinating
aware.
colors.
Not sure if you're aware, but there is a such thing as the choking game among some youth. They actually deliberately choke each other for that feeling.
Uh, um, yeah, there is, and that's obviously phenomenally dangerous. Aside from the fact, I mean, you could collapse the windpipe, and then of course you could stop choking them, and they still can't breathe at that point. So yeah, I've heard of that. I was once that stupid. We have another 199 super chat. Heard that hiccup story 26 years ago. Yes, she did. Actually, I think she knew me for that hiccup story. Truth be, actually, she did. I remember I told her. Red is in the live chat, and we met in college. And as I recall, yeah, she knew me when that happened. We had just come back from vacation. She goes, "How was your vacation?" I was still actually getting a hiccup every like 3 or 4 minutes, but the severity of it had gone way down. I said, "Yeah," and she was about as sympathetic and empathetic as one would expect, which is to say, not a whole heck of a lot. But then again, she knows me, so thank you for the super chat. Although I am thinking that there are some people that should probably be banned from super chats. I wonder if there's a YouTube way. Do you know? Is there a way on
I
YouTube to just
didn't
get
do
started?
anything this time.
I know, I know. I'm psyched, but my suspicion is it's because right now it's just this sort of okay, he almost died. I'll give him 5 or 6 minutes of not giving him shit, and then I'll start in on him. Um, that's kind of where I think I'm going to be stuck on kind of in that general vicinity. I notice you're not
This is
denying
what
it,
you survived for.
but I wonder if there's a way to reinfect yourself. Just wondering. Um, no, well, and so yeah, okay, some gallows humor, but I think we should. That was intense. Sorry, didn't mean to bum out our entire audience. So, um,
Well, you know everybody
uh,
here cares for you. I don't think that
I do.
we're bummed by you having told us. I think that we're bummed by this having happened to you and by the prospect that, well, I don't think I need to verbalize what that prospect would have been. I think everybody here is fully aware of where that may have been going.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I tried to downplay it for a bunch of reasons. uh,
Didn't work.
well, it didn't work. Well, I think everybody. I think the downplaying everybody also sort of got. They're like, well, wait a minute, he's not around. Um, there is a camera in his office. He can turn it on anytime he wants to, and he's not in front of it. He's either dead or very close to it. I'm sorry, but that's just we know Nick. He's not broadcasting. Something's wrong.
An ongoing theme in Discord and now in side chat was the lack of constant dad jokes.
Oh dear Lord. Yeah, not much has changed in the last year. I'm sorry to say. Um, I think people secretly like them. That's my position. I'm sticking to it. I know I've had people with pitchforks on occasion, torches, stuff lit, but really, I think. Speaking of double down and the backfire effect, um, nope. My position is people like them. I'm going to stick with that. but I think I'm losing. Uh, so we do have, and I think sort of what started this was we did have somebody in the live chat last time we did this show who had tested positive and was worried about it. I don't want to worry people about it because again, half the people who get it never realize they've got it. And the reason for the lockdown is more for this is with spring break with Florida and beaches have opened in I think it was North Carolina, not North Carolina on the brain, but that's for other reasons. Actually, it may have been North. It does. Beaches have opened again. A number of them. Daytona Beach, I think, is open, and a lot of the people who go there are going to get sick. Most of them are going to be fine, but they're going to um, pass it on to, especially when it was the spring breakers, who are going to pass it on to their parents, who are going to pass it on to their parents, and then you get, and it's not their lives that they're necessarily taking into. Oh dear Lord, is that Mr. Gart? Oh, I think it was Mr. Gart. We may have lost him. All right, he may also be muted. Um, I'll be honest. I can't actually mute people from this keyboard. Don't tell anyone. I can't. I have asked repeatedly, and Red has said. Red had a very specific conversation with our producer. Do not give him control to mute. And Bull was like, I can do it. It's just a piece of. She's like, no, no, no. He doesn't get to mute people. And so far, he's listened. I'm working on it, but I have far less control on this show. My office keeps getting stolen too. I don't have nearly as much control on this show as I would like. I'm going to whine about that for a little while. And Charis knows me. I'll whine about just about everything.
I wouldn't call it whining.
What would you call it?
I'll get back to you on that.
Well, at least you have the decency not to say it live. Oh, so I think we have Cy Gart on, who we're talking to Cy Gart, Dr. Cy Gart. We'd like to have him back on to talk, especially about people who have been saying that this is a conspiracy. There's been all sorts of, so we're going to talk, and we don't want to do just COVID shows. We had On Ocean today. We're still doing Stitch, but okay, this is a news program. We're going to be a little locked into certain topics for
Also,
a while.
Is my being on here preventing others from coming on? If there are only so many slots, then I can hop right off.
Yeah, yes, it is. It absolutely is. We have 15 slots, but I'm sure, it's been great. It's been great talking to you. But and here's Cy. This was planned, is what I'm thinking. Now Cy's on. I don't know how this happened. No, Charis, you're good.
Okay.
We can actually we can hold any number. We really can. Thank you though. Cy, how are you? I can hear you. So I know he's pretending not to hear me, but he always does.
No, I hear you. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. How are you?
I'm okay. Did I knock Charis off? I hope not.
No.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
If you had the production value of the entire show would have, skyrocketed, but alas.
I don't agree, but anyway. Well, I mean, I would have joined a little earlier, but I had to get over my shock. Took a few minutes, a little more than a few minutes. Because, we've been chatting the last few days, right, Nick? And I had no idea you were sick. I didn't know you were sick or anything. So, I'm a little bit shocked.
Yeah. Well, no, I put it a bit on Twitter. Like I was trying to keep it. It's just it is what it is. We were where we were, and like I said, at first it seemed okay, and I was going to do a show on how, hey, I was going to flex a little bit, like, hey, dude, I got the COVID. Yeah, it was cool, man. It's just like it was a little bit like the cold. 50% of people who got this, and then poof. But yeah, it was only a few days where it was really touch and go, but yep. Is what it is. I am significantly better. I'm about 85% of norm before a show. As long as Red can't hear me because she's going to murder me for this. Yes, I'm taking some energy drinks right before the show so that I can function for the show. Probably not a good idea, but I'm able to be somewhat better for shows than but I'm doing. I couldn't have done this 3 days ago even. So on the mend thoroughly, which is good. But
Good.
so I didn't. I also sort of figured that most people by this point did know at some point. It became a lot of people were coming to the Discord. We sort of used the Discord as a central hub. It was great. There were a lot of people who were like, "Oh, Nick, you got to keep me up to date. Please let me know. Please let me know." I was like, by the time I got to 6 or 7 people, I was like, I can't let, even though I love these people, these are all great friends of mine, and I appreciate it as I can. So we just sort of moved all the information to the Discord, and we're updating people on the Discord as my condition was changing. So I think, and this is actually, I say this as a joke. We say this as a joke, but it was legit. Red wasn't scared until I stopped arguing. Once I stopped arguing, she's like, something is really wrong because he will not. And even when they should poke me by saying something should know, I was like, okay, you can have it. She's like, okay. When was the last time you called the ER? And with the dad jokes too, she's like, okay, you're not even bothering to. And once the dad jokes started back in again, she's like, whew, okay, I'm still pissed at you for getting sick and almost dying, but at least I know you're getting better. So,
well, if you're paying attention to side chat, she's currently offering to give us college stories about you.
Oh Jesus! All right, mods, descend, please. Please descend. Now, here's what I have to do. I have to think about this stuff now. I got the wireless headset. I have a nerve condition, which didn't help with this. I have to get up sometimes to just get I'm in pain. So I have bottles of Neurotonin like this big. I am not kidding. I showed them to Ansgar. He didn't believe me. I was just like, here are the bottles, 3 of them that big. He was like, holy smoke. So I got to get up and walk around. Every time I get up and walk around, it used to be just Mikey would take a screenshot of my office. It turns out, and I have recently learned, that our producer has been taking screenshots for him and sending them to him. So now it's like every time I go, I have to go I got to turn the chair around so nobody can take a picture of it, and then I can go leave. Things you got to do. So, yeah, and now she's going to tell stories, college stories. Wow. There's probably more than a few. Although, I don't know.
Yeah, our super
Do it
chat
red.
says, keep up the energy drink. See what happens.
Okay, Charles, I wasn't going to read that one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay.
You already know what you're in for when you bring me on. You came into this eyes wide open.
No, I did not. Nobody told me you were coming. This wasn't a hey. Okay, folks, the show is still under control. It's completely under control. Whatever you move along, it's okay. It's okay. Everybody, thank you. Is it? Am I? Hold on a sec. Just hold on one second. No, I don't think I'm hallucinating this. This feels awfully real to me. I was thinking I might be delirious, but I don't think so.
Probably cringed with me when you're hitting yourself on the head after everything you've been through. If you could kindly refrain.
Yeah, that might have been.
We'd be much obliged.
I'm willing to do a lot for a joke, especially a dad joke, but that may have been a little much. At least for now. Okay, I will refrain from self-mutilation.
With the amount of oxygen you have not had lately, how many brain cells do you have to spare?
Well, I didn't have much to start with, but I'm surprised he didn't start at that point in the conversation. Thank you.
I wasn't going to, but since you mentioned it.
Oh, don't lie. Jesus. You act as if I don't know who you are. Okay. So, I lied earlier when I said we're monetized. We're not. We can't take super chats. We can't take anything like that. So, yeah, no, we've been demonetized. Well, we actually had a thing on how quickly can we. I'm not kidding. YouTube changed their policies to basically don't say anything depressing. That was, they basically said anything that was, I forget how they phrased it, but the long and the short of it was don't say anything depressing. You couldn't cover genocide, you couldn't cover theft, you couldn't cover murder, you couldn't cover, and they had a whole list of things that they didn't want you to talk about. If you did, they would demonetize you. And this was a recent change. So it was like, oh, we only cover news.
What about conspiracy theories?
Make them cheerful ones.
I'm not sure, but yeah, cheerful. I don't remember that, and they've recently updated. It was if you even said the word COVID-19, you were demonetized, and they said that. They said you could not
Really?
discuss global pandemics, anything like that. They're trying to turn into a kids news. They have recently, and it's now on the banner every time. You may now discuss COVID-19. I was like, can you go back and remonetize every one of our? So more than half our shows get demonetized. The second we, it's just the nature of what what we do. So. Yeah, we're and then I don't know. There seems to have been an oversight though in regards to this policy because even though they have all these restrictions, there was no restriction that said don't bring Charles Crane on. I honestly would have thought that, but nope. Apparently, you can do that and you're fine.
Oh, Nick.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I don't. Yeah. So okay, she's speaking in that tone. I don't like where this is going, but yes, Charis.
Tony, as requested, has descended upon the chat and has warned Red that if she does not tell these stories, there will be consequences. So, thank you, Tony.
I'm gonna find who modded Tony, and I swear to God, once I find out who gave that guy a wrench. Oh. Anyways.
Probably Bully Mary.
Probably who? Yeah. I believe it. I believe it. Yeah. Why doesn't yeah? Well, truth be told, this is, and I'll tell you this in time. We're a little strange around here. I will say this. For the most part, we wrench people only who apply, fill out the forms, and agree to the mod rules. And it's because we kind of like want to at least pretend like we're running this like professionally. So for the most part, if you don't properly ask for and go through the channels for a wrench, you don't get one. So we don't just mod all our friends. So in fact, I can't think of any of my friends that are modded. Now Charis might be modded, I don't know, but I stand by that. I can't think of any of my friends that are modded.
I don't think I'm modded. Tony says he's pretty sure it was you. It may have been while you were delirious.
It must have been. It must have. Okay, that's slanderous. Actually, it's written so it's libel. But in any case, okay, I absolutely did not mod him. There's no set of, well, almost no. There's one set of circumstances where I'd mod him. Sort of, yeah. Okay, it might have. Yeah, let's change the subject. I don't think it really mattered who modded who and why. No. Yeah, I don't think it was me.
Let it be known that Nick wants out of this conversation.
Badly. Yeah, well, speaking of, yeah, look at the time. I think we got to be wrapping up. Yeah, I have been delirious for months. I think I just keep thinking I'm gonna wake up and it's gonna all be over. But Sai, you still there?
No. Oh yes, I'm here.
Good.
Oh. I think
Can
I interrupted Charis, and so she can hurt me. I think please. I want to finish here. No. She wanted to. I'll please, Sai.
I need to be interrupted. I need to be interrupted.
Okay. So what were we going to say, Si?
I was going to say before you leave, because I may come on again and we can discuss this further at a different time, but I just want to warn everyone that there's some really, really bad conspiracy ideas going around now that are kind of new, that are much worse than the older ones that have been. They're actually sort of a repeat of the older ones, but with very specific villains who include Tony Fauci, the entire CDC, the entire WHO, the entire medical profession. It's starting to sound familiar, right? It's a real conspiracy theory that COVID-19 was actually created in the U.S. with Tony Fauci's support and then shipped to China where it took over. So I saw one video on that which had over 5 million views, with everybody saying how important this is, featuring somebody who claimed to be a doctor. He's not. and made a lot of claims that were just completely spurious and outrageous. So I'm very worried because conspiracy theories are very, very dangerous in times like these. And we already see in many places, people, crowds getting together and protesting various Democratic governors. And I'm worried about this catching on and taking over and making a pretty bad situation much worse, just as we're on the point of actually maybe having a few breakthroughs. So I just wanted to say that now. So if you happen to come across any of these things online, please know that debunking them is quite easy, but I'm not going to obviously get into it now because it takes some time. Be careful.
Well, I think we discussed this earlier, and the reality is it is a bit of a race against time. It's not that these things can start to happen; they will, and there will be more conspiracy theories, and they will
Right.
get worse. They just will. What's
Right.
going to happen at this point is something along these lines, which is somebody is going to start to confront some of these people who are doing the protests and saying, "Don't you realize you're killing people? And don't I know who you are? You're part of the World Health Organization. You're part of the conspiracy." Somebody's going to pull out a gun. They may or may not try to. Boom! It's going to be some shooting. That's going to be spun as, "Oh, hey, look, the World Health Organization is targeting and assassinating these people," or whoever. They're going to say, Fauci. They're going to come up with something, and then everybody's going to start to come to these things armed because they're going to say, "This is how we protect ourselves against," and it's going to start to get it's going to escalate pretty quick. And honestly, those kind of things do. I haven't done a mathematical study, but it looks a little logarithmic to me in how they escalate, and it's starting to go there. And that's, I think, education and patient education, but education and going through and patience is, it's hardest now to have patience than ever, but it's that kind of education and talking about the reality that's the best weapon against this. And that weapon does, in my experience, ultimately lose. All you can do is you can slow it down, but you slow it down, you try to wait long enough that we can start to let people go, or you find other ways of keeping people entertained and or whatever it takes. Right now it's not that we're losing, but we're sliding. And once people get it in their heads, until there's a second wave and half of these people end up getting infected and going, "Hey, wow, that was maybe a bad idea." But we really don't want to go through that. So it's a question of, can you have, and this is, if you really want to be scared, here's the solution. This is the solution. It's going to terrify everybody listening to this. The solution is strong leadership from an educated person who is willing to say, "This is what the reality is. These are the experts. We're going to listen to them and we're going to do what's right." That's the solution. Given that that's the solution, everybody listening to me should be absolutely terrified.
Right. I agree. Well, the good news is we have a few governors who are sort of acting that way, so that's helpful. But the potential for all kinds of disasters is scary, and some of those disasters start in Washington. They start at the White House. So I try not to think about that. But I agree with you about education, which is one of the reasons I wanted to come on at some point and explain why this is something that's very untrue and very easy to tear down if you know anything. The problem is you have to already know something about it to be able to do that, because the guy who's doing this, I'm not going to mention his name, one of the people who's spreading this is, looks like a very educated, very intelligent, well-respected member of the medical profession. He's not, but he seems to be. So he's good at that. He's a good actor. So it's important to let people know. And I found out from one of my Twitter followers who really thought the guy was real. And when I explained why he wasn't, I convinced him. But that's a few people. And I think I need to, not just me, but a lot of folks need to go into this. And I'll just say, I remember the Ebola and even AIDS and many other crises that we've gone through, and they kind of followed pretty much what you just said, Nick. A period of real craziness and fear, and looks like we were going down the tubes, and then it disappeared. It evaporated because progress was made and the disease was contained, or not so much with AIDS, that took a long time, but certainly with Ebola, and then people forgot about it, and you don't hear about it much anymore, and that's the natural
and they
course.
don't learn the lessons of it. They don't learn the lessons.
Never, ever. Nobody ever learns anything. No. That's right.
They never seem to attribute our relief of the problem to the measures that we've taken.
Exactly.
And so I think what we're going to go through is waves of this, where we're going to see a spike, and then we're going to try to, compensate for the time lost in our measures being taken, and then we'll see a drop, and then everybody will say, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal, and so we can just go on with life as normal, and then you'll see another spike, and yada yada yada.
Right.
Well, that's what you reached out to me. So Dr. Gart reached out to me and said he really would love to do a show on this, and I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. So would love to have him on. Now I want everyone to understand that he is a theist, but we like him anyway, and we don't hold that again. I see some of you now. It's okay. We've had him on, and he's actually a good. It's hard to believe, it really is, but we do enjoy having him on. This is how people know I'm better. Like, okay, Nick's gonna be fine.
Yeah, you're fine. I don't think you were ever sick. You're just faking it. You're fine.
Yeah.
Come on, give me a break.
Nick, how's that crisis acting paycheck going for you? I killed him. Sorry, guys. I apologize to the audience. I finally did it.
Oh, you're going to get a medal from half of my audience, but nonetheless. Okay. Okay. No, it's nice to feel loved and respected. Why is it I only feel that way when I'm dying? The rest of the time, everyone's like, yeah, we don't really like y'all that much. Oh boy. Well, no. So we're gonna have you, and quite frankly, we want to have you on sooner than I think we can necessarily book you. It's a question of trying to find time and fitting it in. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, I think it'll still be relevant for a little while, which is.
Oh, I think it will, and I actually need a little time. I just got on here just to, well, I guess Charis kind of enticed me by saying I got on, so now, well, you guys should get on. So I followed you, Charis, and here I
am. I'm beckoning to the others in the side chat who are feeling.
Yeah, that was me. I was in there.
And thank you, Sai, for coming in.
I was going to thank her for that because I appreciate it. I was like, oh, let's have some people in. And then I was just like, yeah, but right now it has to be live. So I just sent her a DM in the background going like, okay, thank you. That was really awesome. I appreciate you coming in. But I was,
did you? Where is it? Where'd you send it? Because I didn't see it.
No, I was actually lying about that part. I didn't send you.
Okay.
Anyway. But I was thinking about it. It's the thought that counts. But she called me out on that one too. All right. Yeah, I think I should just turn over the keys. It's quite clear that there may be someone at the helm, but it isn't me, which is sort of also like Washington D.C. right now. There may be someone at the helm, but I don't think. No, there isn't anyone at the helm.
I would make a comment about topping from the bottom, but I can't do that on air.
She says essentially all but saying it. Oh, hold on. YouTube. You have been demonetized in perpetuity. Okay. I don't know where they got that language from, but apparently it's now legal. All right. Well, we actually probably should wrap it up. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, but we're going to be coming across the 90-minute mark reasonably soon, and I think people have been enjoying it, which. I was going to say, I don't know why, but I was like, oh, yeah, because seems to be everyone's going to roast Nick. I don't know how that got to, but that seems to be that. I don't think we're going to.
This is what you lived for.
I'm thrilled. So, crisis acting. I can't believe you even went there. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, okay. Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. So, I don't know. Does
I
anyone,
go
does
where
anyone have,
angels fear to tread.
you what?
I regularly go where angels fear to tread.
Yeah, I do believe that. I really do. Um, so,
Oh,
uh,
believe that,
does it,
please. You walk in there with me. I mean, stop that.
no, well, I've seen it, and on occasion, yes, on occasion, I'd say I was side by side. I was more kind of like hiding behind and looking over your shoulder, but, yeah. Um, so it's like, Charis, you first. Um, so does anybody have, anything they want to say? So we've given away, we've got, Stitch coming up. Is it tomorrow or the day after? Speaking of confusion over days and times, I don't even know what. Yeah, Stitch is day after tomorrow. No, Hard Time is not a real show. That's been spreading. I don't know how and why. Uh, but we've got Stitch in Time coming up on Thursday, 8 p.m. It would be nice if I know what time these shows aired, since ostensibly I'm responsible for them. And then, so, Sai, what have you been up to? What are you doing up next? And by the way, just before we go anywhere else, how are each of you handling? Because I didn't ask this question. I would like to know, how are each of you handling it? Sai, how are you handling what what are you going through right now? How are you handling it?
Well, I'm basically being very careful uh, because of my age, and I have a couple of underlying conditions. So, I don't want to go through what you went through, Nick. I have to say your testimony was powerful and chilling, and really impressive, but scared the hell out of me. So
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that. And so luckily I'm retired. Life hasn't changed that much for me. I've always been doing stuff online for the last several years, doing a lot of writing. So that's useful. Um, some book promotion, that kind of thing, and a few other things, but I don't have to get into that. But basically just waiting, for this to be over, which I think
Yeah,
is true for a lot of people.
I'm hoping we're past the halfway mark. I think we are, but not if
We
there's a
are
second
we
wave.
are in some places. No, we
Yeah,
in many places. I'm
yeah.
keeping tabs on Maryland, which is where I live, and we're definitely over the top there. New York, other than New York City, is doing better. Let's see what happens with Georgia. They're going to open up, and what Charis was saying about the next wave could start hitting in Georgia. Next thing that might happen is some states will be saying, well, if you're from Georgia, you can't come in. That'll be a first in
Well,
the American history, right?
yeah. Well, the problem is the 2 week lag time. The problem is it takes
Yeah,
two, and
that's
we were
right.
talking about. That's why, I mean, when there was a lockdown a week later, everybody's like, well, there was a lockdown in New York. Why are the numbers still going up? Well, because it takes
Oh,
2 weeks before things get better or worse,
right.
depending on what you. So,
Yeah.
Charis, what have you been up to? Obviously, coming on and making grandiose and frankly insulting claims to YouTube hosts, other YouTube hosts, which I would have thought to be some professional courtesy here, but obviously
Well,
not. Uh,
well, you have to find a way to pass the time in quarantine, and currently, at this moment, that is
mhm.
the best thing I can come up with. And so here I am. You extend the invitation, and I couldn't pass it up.
Have you ever heard of
Besides
reading a
insulting
book?
Nick. Yes, it had to do with insults. So I thought I'd
You try it out.
practice a bit. Yeah, besides insulting Nick, I am trying to sew a pretty face mask. That way, if I get it, and I have no doubt that I will, because I'm essentially the canary in the coal mine where illnesses are concerned. Besides doing that, I'm just trying not to catch it because I'm somewhat immunocompromised. I tend to get pneumonia, I get bronchitis on the regular, so I'd like to avoid the harrowing experience that we heard from Nick. I'm doing some of my art, which some of you may know, kind of trying to keep my questionable sanity intact, or what is left of it. And insulting Nick helps. So,
Well, yeah,
thanks, Nick.
well, and I hate to admit, but it was probably her sanity was slightly less questionable until we met. But I'm probably gonna have to take a hit or two for that one. But all right, well, good. I think we're gonna have to do call screening a bit better. Bool. Just saying, we're gonna have an in-time staff meeting coming up. We're going to discuss some changes to the mod structure and basic procedure. We'll discuss it. It's on the agenda. We now have an agenda. So I forget who writes the agenda, but whoever it is, I will make sure to let them know what the agenda should be. And then, all right. So, Sai, was there anything else that you wanted to just sort of let people know where they can find you and get in touch with you? And you know what, we'll put your contact stuff since you were willing to actually come in and be on the air, which I guess I'm intimidating. Obviously, it's but
yeah, that's a struggle for me.
We'll put your stuff. Well, is there anything that you want to? We'll put a link to any of your stuff on the.
No, that's all right. We'll do it next time.
All right, sounds good. Charles, how about you? We can, your artwork, anything like that. I mean, I'll say we'll put a link to. I probably won't, but I'm trying
right now, it's just on my Twitter. There are plans for it to be posted on an actual site. Those plans have not yet materialized. They shall. But for now, Twitter.
All right. So I think that's yeah.
Lord, what
I guess.
now?
Well, no. I guess Red is the one in charge of setting the agenda at staff meetings. I may have a problem. All right, I'll do it. I'll go.
Rip, Nick.
So, yeah, I know. Tell me about it. I've done this to myself. What can I say? All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Charles, very much for coming in. Thank you, Sai, and thank you all for watching. It's I hope been a good show. I've enjoyed it. A little tired, but I have very much enjoyed it. So thank you all. I hope everyone's going to take care of themselves and try to. I don't want to sound like Jerry Springer. Take care of yourselves and each other. Jesus Christ. But fine. Thank you all again for the support. I had an immense amount of support, and I'm aware that the content has, at least the content I'm responsible for, Mikey and Courtney both really stepped up to the plate and did a spectacular job, and we're running great shows in my absence. I heard somebody suggest that they were far better in my absence. I firmly refuse to believe that, but nonetheless.
That was not me. For the record, that was not me.
Yeah, because you haven't had a chance to go back and see them yet. But at any rate, we will. It wasn't you. That's the sad thing, which is there seem to be plenty of people who are happy to jump on that bandwagon. Thank you all very much, and we have Stitch coming up next week. We've got a couple things. I'll talk about that later. I think everyone's tired, and we're all going to go home. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.